So that it takes spending time in the community, talking with people that's not scheduled. It's just kind of a candid conversation, and then really kind of authentically listening to them. So putting your, as best you can, putting your biases aside and putting your, sometimes even architectural education aside, and just truly listening to what they need and what they want.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to Architecting.
You gonna do it? You wanna do it?
Hi. Welcome to Architecting. I'm Rebecca Wagner, here with the host of Architecting, Adam Wagner. Adam, who's on the podcast today?
Ooh, Rebecca, we have another good guest. Not one guest, two guests.
Two guests.
Two guests. So these guests, they have a firm together.
Uh-huh.
A small firm. It is made up of 4 people. 2 of them are artists.
Cool.
2 of them are architects.
Cool.
And they still get a lot of work done. And all of their work is on Native American reservations.
Oh, is it Pyatt and Janna Ferguson?
How did you guess so fast? Yeah, these guys, they're really great, very thoughtful. Rob started the firm, Pyatt Studio, and he was a professor of Janna. And then she joined the firm right out of school. And she, sort of like Adam Harding, has always been with Pyatt Studio and is now a partner. And yeah, just doing very thoughtful work that's really engaging with the community. Yeah, we just had a great conversation. 2 people that I'd wanted to meet before, and yeah, it's good.
Cool. I'm really excited to hear this one.
And you worked with Janna and Christopher Kelly, right?
Yeah, she was a scholar this last year. She killed it.
Yeah. And Rob spoke at.
He's spoken at a couple, actually.
That's how I first met him and knew him.
Mm.
Yeah. But he was also he also helped start the CU Design Build program.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And
does he teach now?
No, not right now. He's a busy dude.
I bet.
Getting projects done. So, hope you enjoy it. Hey, look, so Modern Denver is great, right?
Yes, we love them.
Yeah. Local stories about good architecture.
And a new profile about you and architecting in the fall issue.
Yeah. But Modern Denver is not just all about the magazine either. We're now coming up on the best part of the year, Denver Design Week. So from October 16th through the 24th, there are a ton of events and sessions and talks put on by Modern Denver.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great ones. One that I'm really looking forward to is a session with the photographer James Florio and his work with Ensemble Studio, and a new book coming out looks really great.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of great events, as well as a live architecting show entitled The Voyage Out, Stories from the Early Days of Colorado's Top Architecture Firms. This is going to be with Stephen Dinya, Kevin Nguyen, and Joanne and Hans from ArcDen on October 18th at 11:30 at Pear Workplace Solutions. Come and check it out.
Go to www.denverdesignweek.com to check out all the events and reserve your tickets now.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's so funny. Like the last time we talked, I just felt like this interview was like 4 months away, and now it's here. Just life is barreling on.
Yeah, so did we actually. We were like, oh, it's today.
I know. I always say in my first introduction emails, like, yeah, I'll give you more information the week before, and then it's like 2 days before. Oh shit! Here's the link. Yeah.
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 Well, good timing. I'm 2 days behind on my email, so it worked out great.
Yeah, that was good. I was like, man, I hope they got that email, and yeah, you wrote back.
I did. I thought you were worried. I was like, I better email him back. He was probably worried that
I believed in you guys. I knew you'd be here. Some people maybe a little flakier, but
that's what I said. I was like, he knows.
Yeah,
he knows
most architects are usually pretty behind and stuff. So,
oh yeah, this today I feel like I've just been like meeting to meeting, and I'm like, when do I get to draw? I haven't been drawing. How do you run a small firm for so long, guys? Just tell me.
No, we were hoping to glean that info from you, actually.
Yeah, I keep saying that's the whole reason for this podcast. Just so I can suck knowledge from all of you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But tell me about that space. I like the wood wall behind there. Where you at?
You told us that you needed cross lighting. You wanted really good lighting, so we had to come to Janna's house.
Well, it's a condo. I wouldn't call it a house. It's a little studio, but behind us is a Murphy bed.
Ah, nice.
It's just folded up, but it's a plywood Murphy bed.
Yeah, what you can't see is a 350 square foot?
360. Yeah.
360 square foot micro apartment condo.
Nice.
And it's good lighting.
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks sweet. Rebecca and I, when we first got married, we graduated, got married, and started our firm. And we were in a 350 square foot studio, and we were working out of there all day. And we did a Murphy bed too, but we built a couch that folded down from the bottom.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. So
but ours was just OSB. It wasn't nice plywood like yours. But.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's birch. And I did something similar, but it's basically like I got it from Belgium. Like it was handmade in Belgium with organic wool. And it's basically just like a big floor cushion. So it doesn't have a back. You know what I mean? But it's just the Murphy bed folds down over it.
Yeah. But our office the lighting is not great right now. And then my house is, I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I can't control what kind of music they play and how loud it is. So I didn't know if that would be conducive. The lighting's good. The acoustics are bad because of that.
Yeah. It's hard to find a good spot. I have this dream of building an ADU back behind me with a nice office and this beautiful recording studio, but that should happen really fast, Yeah. But so your office is in Boulder, is that right?
Our office is in Boulder. Right now it's at my house. I've got it's really a garage in terms of the typology, but it was always intended to be a studio. And we've converted that to the office. We did that after COVID because unfortunately we signed the lease for a new office right when we weren't able to use the office because we had the stay-at-home order. So we paid the lease for a whole year, and then we were like, we're just going to kind of tighten our belt, regroup, convert the studio to the office. We're still working remotely because we're on site so much that it seemed like it would work out. So that's where we are currently.
That's pretty good timing then. At least you didn't sign the lease and be paying for a space that you didn't use.
We did sign the lease. Oh. Yeah, we did. We paid for.
I think we signed. The lease started in February 2021 or 2020.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah. No, it was right before. So it was very painful.
Oh no.
Chris will never forgive me because he tried to convince us to share their office, and we were really going to consider it, and then we're like, no, we're going to expand. We're going to hire a bunch of people. We don't want to take up your space. You know what I mean? And so every time we go out, he doesn't let me forget, that we could have shared his office, which was completely empty now.
That was Chris O'Hara?
Yeah.
With NYO? Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. We've threatened to share offices a few times. So.
Yeah, they've sort of made some offers to me. They'd be fun people to share with, I think.
They would, absolutely. You should take them up on it. They've got a pretty nice setup in Denver, too.
Yeah, I think I will. They listen to all these, so maybe they'll shoot me an offer over.
They do. They're more fun than we are, so I figure like our fun factor would go up a little bit.
Yeah. I might become like an alcoholic if I spend too much time around them, I think.
Yes.
But,
Pretty sure that goes with the territory, because it's not exclusive to the AIA conferences. That's pretty much how they operate all the time.
Yeah.
It is fun, though.
Funny.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It seems to be working for them. They're doing great.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny.
We've got a happy hour with them, like with Chris at least, Thursdays at Rayback in Boulder. And so we do a lot of schematic design meetings there. Thursday afternoons. You'll have to join us.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, cool. Let's see, there's some kind of clicking in the background or something, is there? The dog chewing on a bone or something?
That's Riley chewing on a bone?
Yes, I was going to apologize for that in advance.
Oh, yeah, you have a dog named Riley, too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we talked about that at the last time I saw you.
That's funny. You know, it's like...
I can crate her and give her a quieter chew if that's required.
That'd be nice. You know, it's always these things where I'm getting better and better at like hearing these little ticks, and I don't care about it during the interview, and then during the podcast I'm like, why did I let that rub my shirt the whole time? Or I have some bubble wrap on the outside of my door so my Riley doesn't scratch on the door because he's terrified of it. But that was a learning process.
Let me get her that right now.
Cool.
So you're back from vacation. How was that?
Back from vacation. Yeah, let's see. When was that? So yeah, we went to LA a little while ago, I think. Yeah. Yeah. That was awesome. That was a good trip away.
Or maybe you just took a break from the podcast because I saw your post that said,
the vacation.
Back from summer vacation.
Yeah. So actually what I did was I quit at Open Studio and I started my own firm, and it was just like, it was a lot of work. And so I said, I need to take a few weeks break, and then it turned into 2 months break.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
But, yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's the third time I've started this firm. So
just you, or is your wife going to join you, or?
You know, I don't pay well enough to get her away from Ginsler. So she's going to stay there. And actually I have a partner, a good friend in Connecticut. And so we're partnering and kind of doing a remote
cool.
firm. So it's been fun. Just a lot goes into starting a firm, right?
There is
bank accounts and lawyers and
insurance.
Money. Well, I'm actually going to be doing a panel discussion for Design Week with about startups and kind of like stories of starting up, and so that could be fun.
We're a forever startup.
I was going to say, we always say we've been a startup for 10 years.
Yeah, we've been a startup for 10 years.
For 10 years.
It's one of my favorite quotes. The other one is, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. You just got to keep rolling on that one.
Does that roll in nicely to who are you? That question?
Sure.
10-year startup?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who are we? So, Jan and I are representing a kind of a small team. So we're going to kind of talk about the team, Pyatt Studio, and then, our own individual stories. But we're a team of 4. My wife, Heather Kahn-Pyatt, works on the team. She's an owner and partner, and she's an artist. So she's not here, but we'll refer to her. And then Walt Purrier, who's a Ogallala Lakota artist from Pine Ridge who lives in Denver, who works with us on most all of our projects at some point. He's also involved with many things, but he's part of the team as well. So, and then Jan and I, we've worked together as kind of the 2 architects on the team for 9 years, a little bit more than 9 years together. So, I mean, we are kind of like a partnership in terms of the architecture because we've similar training and philosophy. So it's easy for us to talk about the firm together because we do all of the design work and stuff together as the 2 architects. But
yeah, that's interesting. A firm of half artists and
half architects. And then my background is in art originally. I went to Otis College of Art and Design. I thought I would be a painter, but then chose architecture through environmental design into architecture. So I think I have one foot kind of in that world, and then the architecture world. They're very different worlds, but I have enough kind of interest in the technology and the science and the engineering that really keeps me engaged when we're working on the projects. But
well, and where did you grow up, Rob? Like, where did that kind of come from?
Well, I was born in Darien, Connecticut.
Oh, really?
To kind of a white waspy family from Connecticut, and my mom and dad were divorced, so I lived with my mom. She passed away when I was 8.
Oh,
so at that point, I lived with my grandmother, and at a certain point, I had to go live with my dad. He was battling my grandparents for custody, and he lived in rural Missouri, and very different culture, very kind of remote, rural, backwoods Missouri. I did live there for 3 years, but then I left and moved back in with my grandparents. And that was, by that point, they had moved to California, to San Luis Obispo, kind of Central Coast. So I kind of feel like I have East Coast and West Coast roots.
And Missouri, yeah.
Missouri was just enough to know to, appreciate how diverse the United States is.
Very shallow roots, yeah.
Yeah, and then I moved to Colorado when I was, after maybe my late 20s, early 30s, and I've been here ever since.
So how did that background direct you into art school, do you think?
So, on my, I think my mom's side of the family was the greater influence, kind of direct influence, more positive. My uncle was a creative writing professor, and he went to Stanford, and he was very creative. My mom was very creative. My sister was an art therapist. So I feel like art and creativity was just something that I grew up with. And so I always kind of drew and appreciated art. We'd always go to the museums and galleries. So it was just something that I kind of grew up with. I don't think I ever questioned that I wouldn't be an artist. I think, I just knew I would go to art school, but then I really kind of questioned it once I was in art school, and decided that architecture really kind of encompassed all of my passion and interest. And so that's kind of the direction that I ended up in. But I still paint, and I'm still, pretty involved with art. My wife, Heather's also a fine artist. And so it's definitely something that's a big part of our house.
So what was that time period between graduating undergrad and then going into architecture? Was it a direct thing that you knew?
No, nothing that I did was direct. I would be the kind of poster person for unconventional path. And so, everything I did kind of led me in different directions. It took me a long time to get focused with architecture. Architecture is really difficult to, kind of find. You need mentors. And so I really decided to go to the environmental design program at CU Boulder. And even though I had I'd been studying fine art, I kind of backtracked and went into the environmental design as an undergraduate. And then went to CU Denver as a graduate student. So it was kind of, I think, over a span of 6 years or 7 years before I kind of found my path. So pretty unconventional.
Yeah. And then Janna, where did you grow up?
So I am from Colorado originally. There's not many of us left, but my family's been
unicorns.
Yeah, we are unicorns. I'm 6th generation Colorado born, so my family's been here. Well, my mom's side of the family's been here a long time. Most of that family is actually from Elizabeth, Colorado, uniquely enough. So I grew up suburbs south of Denver, which is, as far as architecture goes, pretty vanilla. But I did quite a few service trips through a church that I grew up in. and we did construction projects. And I went, participated in various throughout Central America. So I went to Guatemala and Belize, and then some in the U.S. too. So Florida for some hurricane relief and repair, and then New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and Kansas after the tornado there too. Yep. So I did quite a few service trips. So my path to architecture, the built environment, was, I always knew that I was interested in building, and construction and those types of things.
Was your family in the building trades, or?
My dad's a civil engineer, water resources, so he does mostly dams. And then my mom was a PE teacher. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So then you went on a lot of those trips and had a lot of kind of hand-on experience, and so it was like, yeah, architecture, that's what I'm doing, and I'm here in Colorado, and I'll go to see you.
Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew I liked to build stuff, but I didn't necessarily think that was like a career path necessarily. And I think some of it has to do with suburban education. You know what I mean? It's very generic. We didn't have wood shop or drafting class or, any of those types of trades. So I wasn't thinking about it in terms of a career necessarily. I actually thought I wanted to do, I played basketball, and I was an athlete in high school, and I had a whole slew of injuries, torn ACLs and broken arms and that kind of thing. So I actually thought I wanted to do kind of orthopedic medicine, really. But I went to CU and thought I just went undecided. I wasn't sure, kind of what I wanted to do. And then the freshman year, I took a course in environmental design just because I was trying to kind of put my feelers out. And I loved it. So that kind of set my trajectory.
You saw the architecture students and you said, "Hey, look how pale and tired they look. This is fun. Let's get in with these guys."
No, I think I was blissfully naive at that point. I just enjoyed the intro to environmental design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you went through that program, and how did that sort of change your mind about architecture, or just open up the world to you?
Yeah. So when I started undergrad in 2008, and then I graduated in 2012. And I think it was 2011 that I actually had Rob as a studio instructor. So that's how him and I met. And I stayed involved with different service trips throughout college too. And the summer before I took Rob's studio, I'd been in Jamaica for 3 months, just building latrines in rural Jamaica, which is, not glamorous in any sense of the word. But it was really fun. And we the first day of studio, we sat outside the library and kind of talked about what we'd done that summer. And, I kind of talked about some of that stuff. And then right off the bat, I think, Rob had started NASHI, the Native American Sustainable Housing Initiative, right at that time, or around that time.
Yep. And
so I think from a kind of social justice perspective, we kind of connected that way. So yeah, and then I graduated in 2012, and then worked for Pyatt Studio, full time after that. And then
Janna's worked for Pyatt Studio since then, so no other firms, basically for 9 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I worked for Pyatt Studio from 2013 to 2015, or I guess 2012 to 2015. And then I went to grad school at Portland State in 2015, and graduated in 2017. Worked, didn't work full time for Pyatt Studio, but about 10 to 12 hours a week for Pyatt Studio during that time.
So that's like an interesting school to me. So how did you choose Portland State?
So my graduate school choices were really between three. It was Tulane, University of Minnesota, and Portland State. University of Minnesota and Portland State are the only two programs with public interest design certificates. So ultimately I chose between those two, and Portland State, I had more financial help. So that's what was the decision.
So what did that experience look like for you, especially in comparison to the environmental design? What did you gain from it?
It really reinforced a lot of the kind of values that I had learned, through my time at CU and through Rob and the Native American Sustainable Housing Initiative. I've always kind of seen architecture as having social responsibility, whether we want it to or not, or whether we intend for it to or not. And the public interest design certificates really, taking classes that are, there's an internship. So there's a project that you focus on, either in Portland or throughout the U.S. that the Center for Public Interest Design is working on.
And that's with Sergio Palaroni, who's one of my heroes. Basically, I really had admired his work. And in fact, when we founded the NASHI program, it was really heavily influenced by the BASIC initiative, which he had been doing, at UT Austin or at in Washington, and then at Portland. So he was just a huge influence, I think, on our kind of philosophical approach.
Yeah, and he did a fantastic job of developing projects throughout Portland. Like we did different kind of pod housing for folks experiencing homelessness, everything from that through ADUs, developing ADUs within the city. And then there was some work with with different tribes, and in Northern California, there was just kind of stuff all over the place. So he was really, really talented at developing projects because he has a similar philosophy as it relates to design. It was a pleasure to have him as a mentor and an instructor during that time.
So then, Rob, kind of getting back to how you became the firm that Janna got into. So you graduated from CU, and then what was your next step?
I think that really, so I had Rick Sommerfeld as an instructor when I was in school. Rick was teaching back when I went through the program. I was kind of an older student, so it's not an age difference so much. He had been at CU for a long time. Rick had been a huge influence on me. He was one of my mentors, I would say, and became a really good friend over the years. And so I think that was at CU Boulder and at CU Denver when I started teaching in Denver. So we started kind of working on the design build program together. But after I had Rick, I kind of went on to a certain path that was influenced, I think, by Glen Murcutt and Lake Flato architects, Brian McKay Lyons, kind of all of the kind of folks that are interested in place and regionalism. And so in my senior year, I got to kind of trade out one of my final studios for the Glen Murcutt masterclass. And so I did that. That was at CU Denver. Traveled to Australia, kind of studied there through the masterclass, did a bit of work and did a presentation on the way back, kind of did more work after the class. And that kind of, capped my experience at CU Denver. I had such a great experience with the College of Architecture and Planning. They were very supportive, very flexible with kind of creating your own kind of major in a sense, or what you're specifically interested in, and kind of bringing that in to the studio. So that kind of set me off to start my own firm. I ended up doing an internship with Lake Flato Architects right after I graduated. Spent time in Austin or San Antonio, Texas, at their office there, and then started the firm kind of in earnest back in Boulder after that, when I started teaching at CU Boulder. So I had just a sole proprietorship, and then I taught full time. So it was kind of like, many of us, where we kind of subsidized the office with teaching as we kind of got it off the ground. And I did that for 8 years. I was there. And the work just kept growing. And finally it reached a point where it was either teaching or the practice, because, the academic calendar controls everything. It's very difficult to go out on site when you've got to start your studio in August. Like it's a commitment, and rightly so. It's really an important job. So at a certain point, I decided that it would be best for me to stop teaching and focus on the firm. And that was right around the time that it became clear that it just couldn't be me kind of as the sole proprietor. It had to be more of a collaborative team. And so we organized Pyatt Studio from what it used to be to Pyatt Studio Inc., which was a partnership between Janna, my wife, and myself. So there's 3 owners. But, in extension, we've got the same team on every project. So we work with Chris and Julian on all of our projects, and we have since the very beginning. So since, 2001 or something, I think we've been working with Chris when they first started their firm. And then PCD Engineering is the MEP engineer, and then KLJ as the civil. And we're kind of an integrated design team. So we work on all of our projects as the team, from the beginning through the end. So it's very collaborative and much, much more than, when I was just doing work on my own. I think that there really should be considered 2 different firms in a sense, because, it's just that much of a dramatic change from when we kind of decided to become a team from when we were just me.
So what did that look like? The first kind of project that sprung you, or how many days did you have until the first project? Or
yeah, so we had started working with tribal communities back in 2010, and but those were academic projects, and then eventually they kind of turned into firm projects, and so they've gotten bigger and more complex pretty much every year since. And so now, we're working on, much larger, much more complex community development projects like 50 acre subdivisions, mixed use subdivisions, or much bigger community projects. Some of the projects we partner with larger firms. So when there's a typology or a project that's maybe, not our immediate expertise, we'll partner with a larger firm. One of those would be B&IM Architects out of Kansas City. Yeah. We've done a lot of work with them over the last 10 years. And we just completed the Lower Sioux incubator project with B&IM, where we were, basically 50-50 design team members on that. That's been really fun over the last 3 years. So we just got back from that final walkthrough with Craig Scranton, who's one of the owners of B&IM, one of the principals. And that's been really helpful for us because small firms, we're always limited by our expertise, like what we've done previously. And if you're not working for a firm, you're not really able to bring in new typologies, new knowledge that, unless we all go back to school, but at a certain point, you've got to stop doing that.
Stop getting degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop getting degrees. And, just kind of embrace the profession. And so we're always looking for partners to kind of expand that. So B&IM is definitely one of them.
Yeah. I built a huge wood model of Kansas City up in like the attic of their huge building one time.
Oh, really? Nice.
One summer. And, yeah, they had like the worst table saw up there, and they had another architect up there, and the wood got caught in the saw and kicked back at her, and I thought she lost her eye. Like her whole face was just bloody, and we had
table saws are very dangerous.
And luckily it just hit above her eye, but that's my B&IM experience.
So were you definitely in Kansas
better than
City?
that, but yeah, I spent a summer there, and I went to Kansas State. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, definitely reason. Mostly.
Cool.
I'm a Kansas guy, yeah. But
yep.
So how did you guys get connected with the Native American community and those kind of projects?
So the Native American community is very small in the sense that it's very big in the sense that it encompassed the entire, North and South America.
Yeah, and hundreds of tribes,
right.
Obviously.
But it's very small in that the communities communicate. They might be separate tribal nations, but They have relatives in different nations and such. So it's a small world. And so if you complete one project and you do it successfully and build relationships, then it just makes sense that you would have opportunity to do another project somewhere else or with someone else. And so we literally built our firm around each project one at a time, trying to complete them successfully, and then kind of growing from that. It turned out to be 100% of our firm at this point. It wasn't intentional per se, but it is a fact that right now all of our work are with tribal nations. And so it was one project, referral after another.
The first project though was the Crow Housing Authority in Montana, right?
We did a project with the Crow Nation. It was a series of affordable homes using compressed earth block and setting up a workforce development program. That was through the University of Colorado, through the Mortensen Center for Developing Communities, and was one of the faculty members on that project. And so it was really from that. That project had a huge impact on me personally because we spent so much time on site and kind of seeing the tremendous housing need and the challenges that a lot of the Native American communities are facing related to housing. And so, it kind of struck me that it was just an important area that needed some support. So we worked on that for a number of years. And then we did another project for the Housing Authority on Pine Ridge. Janna was on that project. And then we worked on a really long and ambitious and amazing project for the Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation on Pine Ridge. And that project we worked on for almost 10 years, which was a big 30-acre mixed-use development. And we worked on that with Chris and Julian. That project was on display in the Cooper Hewitt in New York. And we all kind of went out there and had a great time together when that project was done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned a little bit earlier that the NASHI, the Native American Sustainable Housing Initiative, which was kind of in between Crow and OSLH, the Housing Authority on Pine Ridge. And that was more of also had an educational mission. So it was kind of both for students in trades from Ogallala Lakota College, from Pine Ridge, and then architecture students from CU. And I was one of those students. Yeah. But we built on Thunder Valley, the big master plan that we did the design for, we built the first straw bale house. That was the first building part of that. That was part of that development. Yeah. And that was in 2011 through 2013, roughly.
Yeah, it's interesting as a specialization where you're sort of specializing in a client type and not necessarily like a building type, right? Because you're able to do different typologies of housing and community centers and things like that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it really is more of a housing. It started off more as a housing typology kind of a specialization because we had done a lot of research grants with HUD. And so we had some expertise that was important for some of the projects that we were working on. So it kind of started out really just focused on housing. But then, Indian country is developing, so there's just lots of opportunity for work. And so it just kind of led to other typologies. So I don't think that it was necessarily specializing in Native American work. It's just that our clients are Native American tribes, but the work, like the incubator really is a school in a sense. It's a community building and a school. And many of the other projects are either youth centers or art schools or community buildings. And really, there's some, definitely some unique conditions to incorporate into the project, but they're like any other school, really, or any other youth center. in a sense. They just are located within tribal nations.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of to piggyback off of that, I think outside of Indian country or outside of Native American communities, there's kind of a tendency to just say, kind of generalize and say, Native Americans. But the truth is it's so diverse. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and I think that, the work that we did on Pine Ridge obviously looks very different than the work that we did at Taos Pueblo. And I think that that's really good. Design is place-based and it's culturally relevant and it's meaningful. And whether it's on Pine Ridge or, urban Denver, it's just important that it's place-based. So I think that's kind of what we try and focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, Rob talking about Glen Murcutt, and Janna, you did that program too as well? Or
yeah, I did. Then, it was about 10 years after Rob did it. So I think you did it in 2007.
Yeah.
And I did it in 2017. Yeah. So
he might have been just a little bit slower, or maybe smarter. I don't know. But and I just heard Rick talking about how much he did the same experience and how much that impacted him. And how are you able, and what does your design process look like, especially with, it's interesting keeping that same design team, which is, I think, pretty unique and special. And then the two of you or four of you working together so much. What does your sort of design process look like? And when you really nail a project, what does that look like?
Well, do we ever really nail a project? I mean, I feel like
and please tell me how. Yeah.
Yeah. We end up, we run out of time. And so then we're finished basically at that point. I mean, couldn't you keep designing on every project if you had the time? So I think there's real constraints.
Well, it's hard to, I think it's hard to know, within 10 years, because I think a truly successful or nailed projects, for lack of a better term, is one that's, supports a community 10 years, 20 years down the road.
I think we're pretty committed to being on site. So we do probably more site analysis than maybe many folks might. I think that, we either live on site or stay on site, or we're there an awful lot to just be there, and then it's very much like the process that we would, imagine we would learn in like the master class. Lots of drawing, lots of critical thinking, critique, model building. It's kind of a classic architectural process that we're still trying to hold on to in a digital world with tighter schedules. But we're committed to it because we believe it yields better design, better architecture. I think that was one of the kind of important parts of doing internships with like Lake Flato or getting to see how, the GHOST program operates or Brian McKay Lyon's office operates. There's a commitment to architecture that, there's no shortcuts. You have to be committed to it. And it's really hard. And it's not easy to be good at it. You can still go through all of that effort and not really be good at it. You have to have that kind of constant check and balance. So we're better because our team is diverse and it's not, myopic. It's not like following one train of thought. It's like very diverse with lots of criticism. I was listening to the podcast from Renee, and she obviously has some similar mentors or philosophy. And like I remember Glenn saying, "You're only as good as your last compromise." And I my purist self loves that quote. And then I realized that I have to compromise all the time. So it's finding the compromise for us becomes really important. But without compromising on, the quality or, the goals, but you still, as a team, you can't be so focused on one thing. You have to realize, I don't know, Glenn also said, that you have to kind of recognize that it's that one thing that you love the most that you have to give up in order to solve the design. So sometimes it is that one thing, and you have to like just be like, okay, I love that, but maybe it's not this project. Maybe I can still love that in a vacuum, but it's not really applicable here. So we get caught up in when we're working on certain things, but I think that being flexible and really being committed to partnership is where our process excels.
Yep. I also want to mention that we do, Rob mentioned we do a lot of stuff, spend a lot of time on site doing kind of site analysis. And with that, we do a lot of community engagement, which I think in the architecture world currently is kind of becoming best practice, which I think is really, really awesome. But I also think it could potentially turn into something where it's a box to check as opposed to being, kind of authentically, we want the community to influence or have input in what we design. So I think, and that's hard to do in one meeting, like, especially in a community that we're strangers to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it takes, spending time in the community, talking with people that's not scheduled. It's just kind of a candid conversation and then really kind of authentically listening to them. So as best you can, putting your biases aside and putting your, sometimes even architectural education aside and just truly listening to what they need and what they want. Because, architects have a very, very valuable skill set, but I put that skill set kind of in the same line as assets that you find within the community.
Yeah. And I think listening, that can't be, kind of overstated. It's a soft skill that we need to really learn how to do. Because listening isn't waiting to tell somebody what you think or, to find that pause to like jump in and say anything. It's like not saying anything and just listening. I think that's really important, and we should stress that a little bit more. It wasn't necessarily kind of part of my architectural education, so it took me a long time to really kind of pick that up.
Yeah, I struggle with that a lot of sort of dying to yourself and like letting the architecture go sometimes, and
you have to.
And I have zero patience, and I think if I don't make this project good, I'm never going to make another good project, and right. Whatever good means, right? Of holding it up to the architectural standards that you kind of created. But what are some of the projects that you think are kind of most successful in those ways or in other ways?
Well, I think that our most recent project, the incubator project in Minnesota, that project is very meaningful to the community, and that means a lot to us. I know the process that it took to kind of realize that building, and it was very committed to listening and to community engagement. There was a lot of research that went into it, and I think that that particular building was a typology that was complex because it was like parts, kind of almost government, civic building, and then part school and part, commercial, kitchen and elder center and youth center. It was like a very complex kind of group of activities that this building will support. And so there was a lot of stakeholders. And so the community engagement was pretty complex and just finding ways to reach out and listen to what everyone had to say until we heard everything that needed to be said. And then figuring out how within the team to kind of design that, it was, a lot of the work that we do is almost co-designed with the community. It's not so much, this like work of art from the practice. A lot of times, our contracts require us to give copyright to the client. A lot of our projects, we're not allowed to show them at all or even talk about them. So I'd say more than half, we can't ever publish or show or talk about. So, I think that I think it's just a little bit different from what we understand as kind of the model practice that you're trying to kind of grow into.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, it almost seems like some of the things that we've learned make like one of our projects successful is actually sort of in conflict with like good business practices, if you will. You know what I mean? Because you're spending so much time on site. Yeah. Like it makes no sense from a business standpoint, but ultimately the projects are better because of that. So it's sort of a little bit counterintuitive.
Well, that's why we're only 4 people still after all this time.
And what does that look like when you loop in Heather or Walt into the design process? When do they come in? What kind of role do they play?
So Heather's the kind of the office manager, and she's involved in everything all the time. When we do when we go through the design phases, we're going to start site analysis or schematic design. We kind of do it around the table together, and we really cherish non-architects at the table, and try to get more folks at the table while we're doing schematic design that would have no idea what the process is supposed to look like. Kind of like what we've learned in school or through the AREs or in the office, because there's lots of ways of doing it that are different from that, that aren't expected. And so you get to learn really important lessons or see opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily see as early on. And so we like to do it together, where our expertise is maybe Janna and I have more similar experience in how we might see something, but Heather and Walt have also more of a kind of approach that's more aligned, and so we get to kind of talk through it. But it's incredibly valuable. So how we do that, we have to structure our projects in such a way that it supports that process, and we have to make it economical, and we have to make sure that we're still in business tomorrow. And so we build our process into our contracts in a way that might be a little bit different from other folks. We almost operate kind of like a hybrid nonprofit for-profit firm, probably because of our early beginnings as a nonprofit organization, kind of anchored in academia and funded through grant funding. So many of our projects will actually help get the funding to hire us to do the design work. So we'll help write the grants, get the funding, all the way through construction. So that's pretty typical for us. And that might be a little bit different from most kind of traditional architecture firms. If you want to do, certain passion projects, you have to find ways of funding it. And that's either through, kind of pro bono work, or it's through figuring out how to find the funding to pay for the work kind of, as a traditional, for-profit organization. And that's what we've focused on.
Well, have you had is there a mountaintop moment that stands out for you guys? One day, the best day in the last 10 years that's like, this makes it worth it.
What would that be for?
Well, for me personally, I would say the day I passed the last ARE. I mean, there's been lots of really fantastic moments, but that one was like, you set that goal 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a 10-year goal that you kind of, I don't know, it feels like an ending point and also a beginning kind of simultaneously.
I think for me, it was the opening at the Cooper Hewitt with, because we all got to go to New York. It was just one of those perfect trips where we got to see some great architecture. We went to amazing restaurants. Chris and Julian were both there. The client was there. The show was full of phenomenal work. So just to be in the company, that we were in that particular time, we don't apply for many design awards. So for us, it was the equivalent of like winning some major design award. So it just there was a lot of satisfaction with it. It was, the show was for the people, designing a better America.
For the people or by the people?
By the people.
By the people.
Yeah, designing a better America. So it was kind of like a public interest design show. And the projects that we had there were the ones that we had worked on the longest, on Pine Ridge. And so we had a really close relationship with the client. So it was just really fun, to go there. And I, brought my kids and, we just spent some time in New York. It was just a great experience. So.
A nice time to just like revel in it. And I feel like that doesn't happen very often where,
it doesn't.
You have the daily grind and, yeah. What's been the most difficult day? Is there a most difficult day that stands out or a story of the profession? The first ARE?
No, I think it was all of last year, if I'm completely honest, just because of, obviously the pandemic. I think a lot of people experienced, true hardship at that point, from a business standpoint.
Yep.
We had all three of our how many projects did we have going on?
It was our entire office on hold.
Yeah, the projects, they didn't get canceled or shut down, but they did get put on hold, kind of during the initial shutdown.
Which was unlike any, downturn that I'd been through previously. So, I think in the past I've survived through some cycles. And so I had a certain, feeling like we would survive anything, because but this looked very different from anything that we had done, that we had experienced previously. So having all of the work put on hold at the same time had never happened before. We had a mix of project types that were funded through grants. So, let's say the stock market crashes, but our projects are still going because it's not funded through kind of traditional banking systems. So we've always been pretty resilient to downturns. But this was just different because it hit us the hardest because we couldn't be on site, so we'd always had a remote office kind of process. We have a mobile office, a Sprinter van that we take with us on site. So we were kind of used to remote work, but we weren't used to not being able to meet with clients directly or do community engagement. So we had to scramble. And there was a 3-month period where we had no cash flow and didn't know whether the projects would start up again. So I think there was a certain amount of like foreboding that we just didn't know what was going to happen. But we pivoted like everyone, and we were pretty fortunate with the SBA loans and the support that we got there, and we made it through, and some support from the local kind of Colorado AIA community, being able to kind of bounce ideas off of other folks that maybe had more experience or had seen things longer. So that was really helpful, and we kind of made it through. So in the end, it was very positive. But I think there was a period of everybody being pretty down for at least a month of that 3-month period.
And you were saying at that time before then you were looking at ramping up and growing pretty big. Is that still the goal? I mean, it has to be hard where you've been these kind of group of 4 for a while. And what does that look like, growth in the kind of future?
So we had put aside some savings over the years that carried us through these hard times. But it's gone. So we lost it in our survival mode. And so I think it was just a huge lesson. Thankfully we had it, but and that's maybe what it was for. But we had thought we were going to spend those resources on, expanding the office, we rebuilt the office that we weren't able to use. So we put some money into that. And then we were going to hire, and we had a hire ready to go. And so all of that kind of went on hold. But like many people, that happened, or worse. Architecture is, most of us are pretty vulnerable, day to day. It's at least the small firms, you're pretty vulnerable because, the market really controls whether we're up or down. So one of our lessons was, I think through that, we did a lot of internal planning and kind of office planning and strategic planning as a team. And we determined that we really needed to diversify and do some of our own development projects, which we've implemented this year. So we're doing 3 internal kind of design build development projects where we're doing it as the client and developer and architect kind of in-house. So we're expanding out of, just having all of our work kind of in one segment and kind of moving into a more diverse kind of group.
Nice. Yeah. That's the dream. What had that been in the pipeline for a while, or did you quickly develop that? And
no, it was not in the pipeline.
Knew how to do it and start going.
It was, Janna passed her contractor's exam and decided to become a general contractor. And, we just decided we needed to do it. We had time on our hands. So, we still met every day and maybe we weren't working on the projects that we thought we were going to be working on at that time, but we developed projects. We were pretty disciplined about it. We created a business plan, did a lot of research, and then kind of kept that going. And then all the projects came back. So, they were all on top of each other in terms of the schedule as well, which was not ideal. And of course, everybody was eager to have them completed.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I said the whole year of 2020, because it was, the initial kind of anxiety of, are we going to survive this, to, okay, we're going to survive, but now we have a lot to catch up on.
Right.
Are we going to survive this? Yeah.
Right. Because it was, it was a 3-month delay, but I think that 3 months, how it translated to project completion was 6 to 9 months, I would say. Yeah. So we're still, kind of trying to wrap some of those up, and then starting new projects too. Yeah. So I think we're kind of on the tail end of that and starting to feel better. Which is
so. But great. One of the things that Adam, we did is we've dedicated Friday to internal projects. So we don't schedule meetings on Friday. We don't, we don't have our owner, architect, contractor meetings on Fridays. Everything else is occurring kind of Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays we're really focused on our own design build projects or development projects. And just dedicating 1 day a week to it right now. And then, we'll see where that leads. We also really want to work in Colorado.
Believe it or not, we don't have any work currently in Colorado.
We have no work in Colorado. We have no kind of connections in Colorado. So that's what we're focused on. Is a couple of local Colorado projects.
So these new projects you're developing, is it residential or commercial, or what's kind of the focus there? Is there a focus?
Well, we're kind of, we can't help but be kind of quirky in like the projects that we're interested in. So we're interested in we're developing a micro duplex project that fits within the housing needs assessment for the town of Taos. So we're working on that in Taos. That's kind of unusual. Nice. You don't have a bunch of developers lining up for this type of project, probably because there's no payday there.
Like a good architect. Yeah.
Right. But it's really actually super fun and interesting. So we've got that in the works.
Yeah. I think, our focus has always kind of been on residential. Well, not exclusively, but we've done a lot of housing. And for me, I'm kind of, the more I've learned about and done projects that are kind of traditional houses, the more interested I am in kind of critiquing that, or kind of subverting a little bit, and criticizing and questioning why houses look the way that they do. Like, why is a 3-bedroom house, why are there even bedrooms? You know what I mean? Like, even asking those kind of fundamental questions. So as an architect, and that's like a very thesis oriented question, you know what I mean? Just like kind of, critical, I guess. And we get to, since they're our projects and we don't have to necessarily worry about, or kind of, consider
we can experiment a little bit, safely, which we have always done on ourselves as opposed to on clients.
Yes.
In your 360 square feet. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I mean, my house is still a huge experiment. But, and then a couple of other projects. One of them's a prefab cabin project that we're kind of building prototypes for, a fun little kind of remote cabin. And then, a couple of others. One's a retreat center in southern Colorado.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, I look up to you guys for your ability to, I think when we're in school or something, we all want to sort of make the world a better place or advocate for a better world. And it's a difficult line to walk when you get into the profession and have to pay the bills and focus on what you focus on or work for whoever you can work for. What sort of advice do you have for these idealistic students that I see every day of trying to make the world better and when they get out of school?
I mean, I'm going to be very idealistic with my response. I think that you just can't take no for an answer. You've got to follow through with the things that you're passionate about, and question the status quo and really kind of look at changing the profession, because there's no reason for us not to all be thriving and doing the work that we feel passionate about. And in fact, that's the only thing that will change our situation. That's the only way we'll improve the world, is if all of the folks that are graduating right now don't accept the status quo, completely reject it. So we have survived, and I think kind of, practiced to our own tune, in a sense. Like, we followed our own path. It's been very difficult, and you have to, like anyone starting a firm, you have to be okay with uncertainty, because you don't get to see too far down the road. Like, you can see maybe a few months down the road, but you don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. And so you have to, at a certain, there's just a certain amount of faith involved, I think, and hope that things will work out. And then you just keep working towards it.
Yeah. I guess I can answer this sort of as I'm still a young professional. So I'm still kind of in that question that you're talking about. You know what I mean? But I think
we're all getting older.
Yeah, you can't live there too much longer, Janna.
We're
all,
I think my meeting Rob and staying committed to, this company, all the way, through my career, I think is unique. And I don't think that there's lots of people that will have that opportunity. But I will say that, I had lots of pressures kind of along the way. Like I did a thesis in grad school, and I did a team thesis, which had never been done before. So I did it with 2 other classmates.
Never will be done again.
No,
yeah,
exactly.
You're pretty committed to collaboration. Yeah.
I am. That's true. During our thesis, I got a fair amount of pressure from them to not work on Pyatt Studio stuff. You know what I mean? And then there were questions in my mind about, if I was offered a job in Portland, would I take it? You know what I mean? Like all these questions. And I guess instinctually, I kind of knew my frame of reference was small, and it still sort of is. But instinctually, I kind of knew that what I had was special, I guess, and unique. And so I kind of just listened to that instinct and followed through on it, which is not always an easy thing to do. But I think there's lots of pressures to be like, you need to work, for a large firm, and this needs to be your salary, and this is the traditional path. And I think instinctually that didn't feel right to me.
Although I would say that it's the projects. I think that it's the work. Pyatt Studio is made up of the team, but the work itself is really special.
It's both. I think it's both, because there's very few. I was licensed 2 years ago, and there's very few people who have been licensed for 2 years that are now an owner of a firm. That's very uncommon. So I think it's both. The work is definitely very meaningful, and the structure of the studio is really meaningful too. But I also think that, I guess another piece of advice is that I would say everyone has something to offer. And so I think that I had a lot to offer Pyatt Studio, and I think Pyatt Studio was had kind of open enough heart and an open enough mind to accept that. So I think similar to what Rob's saying, if there's a firm that doesn't want to accept those offerings or those skills, then kind of reject it altogether and find one that does, or create one that does.
Yeah, and find one that does, and don't take no as an answer. Yeah, no, I will come work for you. So, well, you'll probably get a lot of applications after this podcast, so get ready. So
hopefully we're in a position to entertain hiring folks.
Yeah,
hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Well, thanks, guys. I've known about you for a little while, and it's been great to talk more and meet you here. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing the work.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
Yeah, this was awesome.
We really appreciate the work that you're doing in Colorado with this podcast, and we're fans. So thank you for doing it.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this week's show.
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.